Okay, so now that we've downloaded what we needed and installed it, so Bolt is installed for this project, ready to work, and it does have to be reinstalled for every project you want to use Bolt in. But one of the advantages is now we can work entirely in the Unity engine and not have to have secondary software like Visual Studio and do our visual scripting right here in one of these panels, which isn't on here yet. Well, that's the next thing. We need to set up these panels in the way we want to look at them. So what's going on here? The default view shows the hierarchy. That's all of the objects that we're using in our scene, a way to access those. Then here in the middle, we have the scene itself where we drag pieces around and put them together for the starting position. The game tab here, this is a preview of what it will look like when we hit run. Over here, the inspector, all of the objects we put in our scene, when we select one, this will show the information about it. And down here, we have a project tab and a console tab. So obviously the console, we can send out some echoes to keep track of what's going on in the scripts, or error messages, things like that pop up there. And project is kind of a file explorer. It just shows us all the files that are available. And this is the default view. You might want to set it up somewhat different. For one, right now we need the Bolt windows brought in, which if we go to the window option up in the main menu, you'll see there's a couple new options that weren't there to begin with. Graph inspector, variables, the graph. These have to do with, these are Bolt things. So we'll use a couple of those. And I'll go ahead and do the setup I like. So I usually start with the 2x3 setup, which should be one of the ones built in by default. To rearrange all the windows. So now we have the hierarchy here going down, then the project, all the files we'll need, then the inspector, which is the attributes for our game objects, and then we have the scene and the game. And I want to bring in a couple more windows and kind of set them up. First thing I like to do is drag this game tab panel right up here next to the scene. That way those are kind of together. And same thing, I'll drag this project tab down below the hierarchy one and stack it vertically. And then all the inspector stuff over here at the right. But we need the Bolt tools. So if we go to window, the big one we'll need is the graph. The graph is the window where we drag our units around to produce the scripts. And personally, I like to just grab the little tab and drag it down here so that it docks right below the scene. I find that useful for debugging, because that way when the game's running, I can see the little dots moving around, dots and words and numbers moving around on the graph right below the game. So I like to put that down there. And we also need variables to use in our graphs because it takes the place of scripts. And we need another window for that. So if we go under window up at the top, you should see one called variables. This is all of our variables for the Bolt visual scripting tool that we'll use. And personally, I like to just grab the little tab here and dock it underneath the inspector. It just seems like they go together. So the inspector has all the attributes about the objects we put in our scene. And in my mind, it seems like the variables that we'll use in the script go right along with that. So that's how I like to set up the window. And we've already imported all our assets. So we have this huge folder of assets that we can start putting together. So however you choose it, you just get a starting point, drag in all the windows you'll think you'll need. You'll probably want to see the scene and game. You'll want to have those there for sure. You'll need the graph panel. That's where we put the Bolt visual script together. The hierarchy, you'll want to see that because that's how you access all of the objects you put into your game scene. You probably want to see project somewhere. That way you can get to the files that you'll be using. The inspector, you will definitely need to see the inspector. That's how we make adjustments and definitions for the objects we put into our game scene. And you're probably going to use some variables in your script, so make sure you see the variables panel as well. So these are ones I like to start with. And we can open others, and we can open and close them as needed, but this is what I found to be a really good starting point. So now we're ready to go through here and start putting the game together. So a couple videos to do the setup, but now everything's set up. We have all the assets we'll need over in this folder I downloaded, or whichever one you chose. That's the images, the backgrounds, the characters, the little props they'll use, all of that stuff should be in the asset package. And we have Bolt installed, and our Unity environment is set up, ready to go. So let's get started, and we'll get started in the next video.